Okay.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call the meeting of the Finance Committee to order. First order of business is hearing of public speakers. Are there any?
No, sir, none today.
Okay, then we're ready to go to approval of minutes. Anyone have any changes or comments on the minutes? May I have a motion to approve? Second. All in favor? The minutes are approved. Mr. Johnson, would you take us through the work plan?
We have no changes to the work plan today.
Then the next item is Budget Watch.
Good morning, everybody. This month's Budget Watch focuses on February operating results and subsidy results through March. I'll start with operating results and revenue. In the month of February, passenger revenues were $16 million or 3.8% below budget year to date. In the month, they were $16 million or 3.8% unfavorable. Year to date, passenger revenues were $40 million or 4.6% unfavorable. Inclement weather, including snowfall and low temperatures that were more severe than normal, were mainly responsible for unfavorable results at New York City Transit and the commuter railroads for the month and year to date. Lower revenues at Metro North also reflect the impact of the February 3rd collision in Valhalla. For toll revenue, they're actually slightly favorable for the month and year to date, primarily due to higher than anticipated traffic levels. Moving to expenses, expenses through February have been running slightly favorable. Much of that variance reflects timing-related variances for materials and supplies and maintenance and other operating contracts, as well as lower fuel and fringe benefit expenses that were offset by higher weather-related overtime expenses. Debt service expenses for February were $188 million. This was $32 million or 14.5% favorable due to lower than budgeted variable rates and the timing of debt service deposits. The year-to-date favorable variance increased to $34 million or 7.7%. Thank you, Adrian. Moving to subsidies, subsidy results through March were positive. Collections from real property transfer taxes captured within the category of the New York City urban tax remained strong. Overall, real estate transaction taxes were $32 million favorable in March. This increased the year-to-date variance to $110 million, or 42%. Petroleum business tax, PBT, receipts through March were $19 million, or 13.5% favorable. And payroll mobility tax receipts through March were on target, but year-to-date those results are still $8 million, or 2% favorable. To try to capture all those different individual results, I would say preliminary net results were favorable for the month overall and year-to-date, and that's mainly as a result of higher subsidies, primarily the collection of real estate transaction taxes. Operating results remain slightly unfavorable due to weather-related revenue losses and overtime costs that were somewhat offset by lower expenses. With improved weather, we expect operating results to trend back towards budget. Question?
The real estate tax increases, is that a trend now that we should expect to keep seeing?
Well, I don't know what we can expect to keep seeing. We've seen several positive months in a row, and we're watching that very closely. It's certainly good news for us.
Because it's a pretty healthy number.
It's a healthy number, that's correct.
Doug, why don't you make a comment on where we stand, though, with real estate revenues versus the peak that we saw? We're still significantly below the peak that we had in 2007.
We've right, if you recall, we were at $1.7 billion at the peak, and we actually went down to under $400 million in annual, and we've had steady increases since that point. I believe we're expecting about $1.1 billion. I'd have to double check that number. We're slightly above that, but obviously it's a good story. We're not really anywhere close to where we were at those peak times.
We know that Bob always has to throw a damper on things.
Well, Bob, yeah, that's what he does.
Bob, just a follow-up question quickly on that.
Yeah.
When those real estate taxes were all put in place, they were intended to support debt service for the capital plan?
Well, the real estate taxes are.
When they were instituted by the legislature, they were intended to support debt service for the capital plan.
They were intended to support basically our operating budget,
Operations,
which
yeah.
included debt service for the capital plan.
That's right.
What we've said we're trying to do now is we built into the plan a certain expectation on what those real estate revenues will be. And our desire is, to the extent that we see positive variances, over budget, to try to use those revenues either for direct pay-as-you-go for capital, or to use it to reduce some ongoing expense, like the expense attributable to the unfunded pension plan. So in doing that, we can reduce ongoing expenses that then makes money available for the capital program.
So the growth in the real estate taxes cannot and should not be used to support increased debt service?
It shouldn't. I mean, it's the amount is too volatile. And so, I think what we're trying to do is figure out what's the best use of that money. But whether it's one shot or not,
Couldn't
but
agree
not
more.
big, yeah.
Any more questions on Budget Watch? Okay, that being said, Finance Watch is next. Pat McCoy.
Thanks, Doug. Good afternoon. Finance Watch appears on page 20 of your committee materials today. We first want to report a diesel fuel hedge that was executed on February 26th. This was competitively bid among our three existing fuel hedge providers. The winning bid was submitted by Merrill Lynch Commodities, Inc. at an all-in price of $2.052 per gallon, 2.9 million gallons. And this hedge covers February 2016 through January of 2017. And then we want to report on the recent fixed-rate issuance of MTA Transportation Revenue Bonds, Series 2015B. We priced this on March 11th to a very receptive market. First taking retail order period on the 10th, where we had 136 million of orders. Unique to this transaction was the issuance of a 40-year bond. This is the first time we've done a 40-year bond. And it initially a very tepid reception to the bond. We benefited from a very positive shift in the market late in the day, and were able to sell that bond at a price to yield of 3.8%. So very attractive issuance, and unique in the opportunity to go with a longer bond. That ties exactly to an analysis of the way that those the band proceeds were spent. This was a band takeout. The average life of the band financed projects was 38 years. So as you can see here, the average life of this issue was 26.8 years, even with the 40-year bond. Our all-in TIC was 4.29%, and the average coupon was 4.93%. So again, very attractive transaction, and a receptive market to the bonds. Any questions on that? Okay, that concludes Finance Watch.
Yes, sir. Next, we have the All-Agency Annual Procurement Report. And the action item is to authorize the filing with the State of New York the annual MTA All-Agency Procurement Report for the period January 1st, 2014 through December 31st, 2014, as required under Section 2879 of the State Public Authorities Law.
Second, is there any question or comment? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion passes.
We have two report and information items. The first is the MTA Prompt Payment Annual Report for 2014. The report reviews MTA-wide success in meeting mandated prompt payment deadlines, including the interest penalties incurred as a result of late payment. In 2014, the MTA agency-wide paid a total of $80,000, $80,011 in interest on a total invoice value of $9,860,533,000. Don't ask me what that percent is. It's very small. The second, any questions on that? Sure.
Yeah, just very quickly, I noticed it's just MTA contracts, and it's 44 different contracts, small amount of interest, but I'm just wondering why that was. What resulted in us having to take a mic?
These are all capital program payments from the agency capital programs and initiatives that are paid through MTA headquarters using the Business Service Center. So they cover all agencies.
The question was why? It was something with the Business Service Center?
No, all of the capital payments are part of the capital program, and the capital program is administered through MTA HQ in as much as the payments are processed. We report them as MTA payments.
Right, I was asking why were these payments?
Because they...
Various reasons? There's
No, that historically we've always reported them through MTA.
No, I'm asking why they were late.
Oh, why they were late?
Yes.
44, this is, there are many reasons, primarily reasons for matching the invoice to the receipt, accepting the services provided, accepting the goods provided, disagreements between our project manager at the MTA and the project manager from the vendor.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. The second information item is the contract change order report for the fourth quarter, October through December 2014. We've also included the capital contract change order that is reported to the CPOC committee. That's for your information. Any questions on that? Next, we're going to move to headquarter procurements. And we have 5 procurements for headquarters for a grand total of $28,403,000. Before I ask you to vote on that, we have Representatives Mike Salvato and Jurgen Peterson from Enterprise Asset Management that just want to talk a little bit about the EAM process, where we are, and where we're intending to go.
Thank you, Doug. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Michael Salvato. I'm the Director and Program Executive for Enterprise Asset Management for the MTA. In April of 2013, the board approved a task order contract to 9 asset management consultants. With an authorization of 11.5, this contract enabled all agencies to proceed, thank you, with early stage planning to comply with new federal funding requirements being developed under MAP 21, following international best practices. Under this contract, all agencies proceeded with gap assessments, improvement plans, defined IT system requirements, demonstration projects such as the introduction of mobile technologies into the track and signals to streamline work practices. EAM, as we've come to call it, has become a major transformational program that will move the entire MTA from a reactive maintenance and replace approach to a more proactive whole life asset management practice. All agencies are committed to introducing proven approaches and technologies for supporting more informed, uniformed, and transparent investment decisions. The program will be delivered through a series of rapid improvement projects over the next 5 years, with a preliminary estimate of $160 million as a one-time operating and capital investment. Additionally, $35 million in reoccurring and operating costs have been identified at Long Island Railroad, Metro North, and Bridges and Tunnels, and New York City Transit is still developing the estimates. The final costs and benefits are being identified through a gap assessment process, which will be incorporated later this year and presented to you, the board. This funding, this funding would be used for project delivery teams, information systems, MTA IT staff, professional services, and the new staff to carry out the asset management functions. All projects in the EAM program must have a positive business case in which the benefits in operations, asset utilization, or capital investment outweighs the investment. To enable this program, we will reissue a competitive RFP later this year and bring it to finance in early 2016. Today, we are requesting an increase to the not-to-exceed amount of an existing task order contract by $14 million as part of a $23 million 2015 spending plan. Board support will enable all agencies to move forward with business process reviews, systems design, demonstration projects, and early-stage activities such as asset registration and condition assessments. All projects must follow predefined criteria and rigorous review to proceed. Governance for the EAM program is provided by the Asset Management Coordinating Committee, comprised of executive sponsors from each agency. Additionally, each agency has an executive steering group and a program management office, and we've brought in internationally recognized program managers at headquarters to ensure the projects deliver value for money. The coordinating committee will present the complete asset management strategy, costs, and benefits to the board later this year. We will also report back regularly on the progress of the enterprise asset management program. Everyone at the MTA is committed to improving our asset management and appreciates the board's support. That's my introduction. Any questions?
Okay, in that case, we're asking for the approval of the HQ procurements that total $28.4 million. We have one non-competitive for $85,500 and 4 competitive, including the EAM item, for $28,317,000.
Have a motion to approve. Second. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Next MNR.
Okay, there are no items for Metro North. For Long Island Railroad, we have one action item requesting that the board grant approval authorizing the negotiation and execution of amendment to the existing Gateway Tunnel agreement with Amtrak to incorporate a new tandem wheel truing machine in the rebuilt maintenance of equipment facility at West Side Yard. This would replace the current outmoded equipment at a not-to-exceed cost of $9.5 million.
May I have a motion? Second. Are there any questions or comments? All in favor? Action item passes.
Next, moving to New York City Transit MTA bus operations. We have an action item for New York City Transit requesting board approval to accept the assignment and assume a contract between the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and the Downtown Design Partnership, which is a joint venture of AECOM and STV Incorporated, for expert professional architectural and engineering services for the permanent World Trade Center Path Terminal on a task order basis, and approve a modification to the contract for the not-to-exceed amount of $3,788,000.
Do I hear a second? Are there any questions and comments? Hearing none, all in favor? The item passes.
Also following that item, or included in that item, it's seeking permission to assume only the portion of the contract that is related to the reconstruction of the Cortlandt Street number 1 line station, which I should have. So we should probably ask for approval on that as well. Yeah.
Second.
Yep.
All in favor?
Thank you. For transit, we have 4 procurements, 1 non-competitive and 3 competitive, for a grand total of $92,542,000.
Does everyone understand the issues? Is there a motion? Second. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Okay, there are no items for bridges and tunnels. There are no items for FIMTAC. And that would take us to the real estate portion of the agenda. Jeff?
Thanks, Doug. Afternoon, everybody. We have 5 action items this month. As always, we provided a staff summary for each. First is this is the March meeting. The Public Authorities Law requires us to renew our statutorily required property disposition guidelines, which the board has previously adopted. We aren't recommending any significant changes this year, so I won't elaborate on the materials that's been distributed to you unless there are any questions about that. Sorry, not coming through? That's better. The Oyster Rides item in the books is also routine. We're asking for authorization to enter into a license with the hire of 2 bidders for a taxi license at Massapequa Station. I do, though, want to speak briefly to the other 3 items.
as they exemplify the efforts we're making to identify and monetize surplus real estate assets that we can dispose of without compromising our transportation-related operations. In the case of the Columbus Circle project, our purpose has been not just to raise money for the operating budget, but to demonstrate our ability to work with the private sector to effect dramatic transformations to IND, underutilized IND mezzanines for high-quality retail. As I say, to be sure to raise money for the operating budget, but also as an end in itself for the benefit of our customers. We're now on the cusp of making that vision a reality at Columbus Circle as the developers put together a very exciting mix of prospective tenants and is poised to close on institutional debt and equity financing that's required in order to make a total capital investment that is now slightly more than double what was initially anticipated when we came to you before. And it's to reflect that significantly higher commitment to the project by the developer that we propose to make tweaks to the upside participation that we'll receive from the enterprise. We're very pleased to recommend those to you because we think this project is going to really be a great demonstration for things to come. Finally, we have two proposed transactions by which we propose to generate very significant, previously unanticipated dollars for our capital program, both in Long Island City and both significantly without calling into play any of the sorts of daunting logistical problems that are presented by overbuild projects. As we've discussed before, very time-consuming and difficult to conceive of and execute projects that involve building directly over our projects. So we're very excited to have identified these two opportunities to transfer development rights pursuant to the existing city zoning to adjoining landowners whose projects are shovel-ready. So we'll be able to generate money in the near term for the capital program. It's our hope, as indicated in the staff summaries, that together these two projects will generate just in excess of $60 million for the capital program. Having said that, unfortunately, I do need to apprise you of a late-breaking development with respect to the transaction that's described in the books as Queens Block 403. Very late last week, after the books had gone out, developers, structural engineers notified us that they had identified some technical concerns having to do with the depth of the foundations required to support a taller building. We hope it's not the case, but it's possible that they will need to build a building somewhat smaller than we had, than the tower that's described in the materials. Because time is of the essence for them, I would ask that you authorize us to proceed with a transaction based on the $117 per foot price that's specified in the books, even if that means that we do something less than the total 478,000 feet. If there are no questions, I would ask for approval of the 5 items. Yeah.
Yeah, on the transit item, the one, transit item in Long Island City, the substation.
Jackson Avenue. Yep.
Now, it says that the money is going to go for the 2010-2014 capital plan. Is there a shortfall in that plan that we're filling, or?
There was an understanding with the city, reflected in the 2010-14 program, that we would generate $250 million through cooperative efforts to create value through master lease properties and otherwise. And this is, as was the case in the Houston Street and Gun Hill projects, this would be sort of applied toward that arrangement.
How much is left of that needs to be generated?
So it's a little hard to say because because there are different components of it. I think it's fair to say we're still working on it.
I think we had put in there that there would be real estate revenues and other revenues, and the preliminary look is between those two categories, we're going to meet our funding needs. So whether we generate as much as we had first hoped on real estate, certain other revenues are coming in higher. And so I think that we're going to hit the need for the 10 to 14 capital program. But in terms of some of these others, there's certainly monies that we're going to anticipate using for the 15 to 19 capital program.
Okay. On the,
Anyone else?
on the,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I
Are you
just have a
done?
on the larger one, the 70, what's it, 77 stories? 75 stories, doesn't really matter. It's in Queens Plaza, the residential building. I don't have really, we're getting 56 million, is that what I read?
As I say, assuming they're able to use
Assuming that
all
they can actually build.
478,000 feet.
Right, and.
That's correct.
Also some green space and also expansion of the entrance to Queens Plaza.
That's right.
Right, and that's, the value's in there, but, yeah, every time we do one of these, and as you said, it's usually more complicated than this, it's because of where this is, we just happen to have property next to what they want to do. We're probably getting a very good deal, and I congratulate you on doing this so rapidly. I think it's a great thing, and it shows your efforts. Although building large towers near congested subway stations, we still have to question it. And it's not really for us, maybe it's for city planning to start to say what's needed. But I think this shows that we're going to need at least CBTC on the Queens Boulevard line, which won't come online for another, 10 years maybe. I mean, I just don't see how you can continually build large buildings in Long Island City, or even develop Sunnyside Yards, as some have suggested, without improving the transit infrastructure. And I just wanted that to be on the record. And us participating in it, I know we're getting what we can out of it, and we're short of money. We need to, if we have the property, I fully condone us doing this, but I think as a larger policy issue, someone should be asking the questions about what the capital needs are of our system to be able to carry the people who are going to be in these areas.
While entirely taking your point, I will say that this is not adding to the bulk authorized by the existing zoning. It's merely a transfer within a block.
But I know, it's as I said, city planning. They're
Completely
even looking at increasing the FAR for this area. So, the people object to such a, and there are people who don't like this, but it's as of right, and there's no city planning approval here. So, thank you.
Can we just, stay on topic here? Mr. Capelli, did you have something?
This 70-story building, how many people are we talking about adding to the system?
I believe that the number of units that this air rights transfer would add is roughly 490 units maximum. I don't have that number in my head for the entire building.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Pally.
There are two projects here, that one and one of the other ones. There we go. There are two projects here, that one and one of the other ones, in which we are basically giving our property, air rights, whatever it is, something that we own for additional housing. We went through that conversation, as you and I know, a couple of months ago in the suburban areas, and now we're doing it in the city areas. And obviously, in the city areas, in most cases, other than my friend in Staten Island, almost everything that is built is transit-oriented development because it's near a transit system. Notwithstanding that point, how many of the units in either of these transactions are deemed or are required to be affordable under the city guidelines?
These are market rate units. The entire building, in each case, the building going forward is a market rate building as permitted under the current 421A program. To the extent that the city and state choose to reassess that at a future date, we, like any other landowner, would be bound by that. But the effort that was made in upzoning Long Island City in the first place and in excluding the affordable housing requirement from 421A outside of Lower Manhattan was to stimulate this sort of development.
And as you know, and you and I have had this conversation, I am very concerned about that. Whatever we do, we had this conversation with regard to our friends in Westchester County. My understanding is there has been subsequent negotiations that have gone on, and there are now an agreement between the various parties in Westchester County to require affordable housing as part of the development that we are providing certain lands for. It seems, and I'm sure the next one will be on Long Island, and I would take the exact same position, because I feel very strongly, well, I'll leave Staten Island out of the equation for the moment, but I feel very strongly that when we give up something of value, and we are providing something of value here in both of these transactions, and it's not a question to me of whether or not we should do it. I believe we should do it. But as part of our commitment to doing it, the same rules should apply in New York City, that apply in Garrison, that apply in Ronkonkoma, that apply any place in the region where we are providing something. And unfortunately, our other friends from the city are not here at the moment, but I am very concerned about a project moving forward when we just had this same discussion a couple of months ago. Obviously, the chairman and I have had conversations about requiring it for every project, so that everybody understands from the beginning that if you want something from the MTA that we own, that we're willing to do that, but in return, a fully market rate component is not acceptable. That it is required that certain parcels be affordable, and the mayor has obviously made that clear in other cases, and I firmly believe that that applies in the city of New York just as it applies in the suburbs. So I'm very concerned that in both of these transactions, either they didn't agree to it before we got involved, or they're not agreeing it to now that we are involved. They could have built an as of right, whatever they wanted to build, within the 421 program on its own. They are now getting something worth more to them than $55 million, assuming $55 million is the final outcome, because they're not going to buy it from us and have an even swap. They're getting something more than that. They're getting another 400 and something units ad infinitum.
Mr.
Some
Kay.
portion of that should be affordable, and I am going to, Mr. Chairman, vote against both of these projects because I do not believe that's appropriate.
Mr. Kay.
Yeah, Mitch, on the larger issue, and I understand, I don't believe the MTA has a policy of the affordable housing yet, but I guess to this project, the $117 per square foot that was paid for to get to the $56 million, that's a fair market value
based on an
by an
appraisal.
independent appraisal
Yes.
without an affordable component, presumably.
Correct.
And so our fiscal responsibility and our fiduciary duty as having an asset, right, that has no impact on transit purposes, require us by law right now to get as much money for that asset as possible. Is that right?
Well, that would be my position, yes.
The comps on the 117 per square foot, were they readily available in the area? Was it a shot in the dark? Was there something the
there's
appraiser
been-
was able to
no, there's
look at
been-
in the general
Yeah,
area?
there's been quite a lot of development in the Long Island City area, as you know.
Have any of them included affordable components to it?
I don't, John, I don't believe so, no.
I'm just trying to understand if there was a
No,
delta.
No, I don't believe they took projects with affordable components and then extrapolated from those.
And if in fact an affordable component was, well, I guess, I don't want to, that's conjecture. I guess my point being, if an affordability was required, right, the value of those air rights, I would argue, is much less than the 117 because it affects the
Well, that-
entire base building as well.
That's correct.
But that's a different issue.
Yeah. Jeff, you might also just mention, if we don't convey these air rights, development rights for this project, are they of any value to us after the project goes forward?
No, this is a wasting asset. Once these buildings go in the ground, there's no more opportunity to sell these development rights because these are the only receiving sites.
Mr. Ballard.
Thank you. Thanks. I don't know when to weigh in on the big global point, but I agree with, I think, what the thrust, what Jeff was just saying, and both Jeffs. I'm interested in maximizing the dollars to MTA, and if we can move forward other governmental, I think that's what our fiduciary duty is. If we can help move forward other governmental policies, I'm very willing to listen and try and help. but we have to do what we're charged with, which is to protect our institution and our customers. With respect to the two immediate things on the agenda, excuse me as I deal with this iPad, which I might throw, for which I apologize in advance. The first one, where there's, just hold on a sec, I'm sorry.
Substation or the other one?
Yes,
Jackson Avenue Substation.
yes.
Yeah.
Where it says, a purchase price equal to the fair market value of the development rights as determined by an independent appraiser to be engaged by EDC. Do we have any refusal rights or for selecting the appraiser? Because if EDC is selecting the appraiser, and if EDC is, we're all working together, but EDC is an arm of the city, I would just want to make sure that the appraiser is truly independent and we have our view.
Well,
and
I believe the key point is that our interests are aligned with those of the city because, as Ira noted, this is money that is going into our capital program and effectively being counted towards monies that the city had otherwise understood they would
It's
have
a very
shared
complicated
responsibility for.
relationship. I would like to have oversight over the, quote, independent appraiser.
John, do you know if some affirmative?
I've worked with a lot of, quote, independent
Joseph.
appraisers, quote.
Jeff, if I read it right, though, they're proposing a swap, correct?
Sorry? Yes.
Sorry, if I read this right, the city is actually more aligned than just passing this along, because the city's proposing a capital swap?
Oh, Joseph Chan here.
Yeah. Just asking Joseph whether
Yes,
they've already identified the
EDC is
appraiser.
subject to the PAL laws as we are. So these are independent consultants, appraisers that they hire, and we provided the scope to them as well. So we have input onto the scope of the appraiser's assignment.
Just to,
Okay, and if we look at it and are troubled by the appraisal, do we have any avenue to raise the objection or have just inquiries?
I mean, we could add additional components or requirements onto the appraisal if we wanted, and we have made that
That's
clear
all
to
I
the
would
city.
want. I mean, if we look
Yeah.
at right now, we're out of it. I would like to just make
Well,
sure that you.
Let me just say
I would
that.
rely on you
Sure.
and your staff, but.
No, fair enough, John, and let me just say that the way each of these transactions has been structured is that we surrender our property simultaneously with the transaction that EDC then enters into with the developer. That's what happened on Houston Street. So the result of the appraisal will be known to all of us before the transaction goes forward. If there were some, glitch or something egregious in the appraisal, we would certainly have an opportunity to say that. But as I say, I think our interests are entirely aligned in this respect.
just,
Mr. Kay, to follow up?
yeah, just to follow up one way or the other. When the city passes, so the money goes to EDC, right? The city then submits that to the MTA's capital plan. Is that a dollar for dollar, or is there an actual capital swap where the city is taking, or the EDC is taking the money, keeping it, and then the city's giving borrowed dollars elsewhere, giving it to the MTA? So the incentive actually is even better. I hate to get into a budget component, but the city's benefiting tremendously as well by maximizing their value. They're not just taking let's say it's $1 million for argument's sake. They're not just taking the $1 million and handing it to us. They're pocketing the $1 million and then borrowing another $1 million elsewhere and giving us the borrowed money. So their interests are even more aligned than I had realized.
Mr. Ballard?
I still would like some type of ability for you to weigh in on if you don't, as opposed to just delegating. Negotiations away from us can always get complicated, and next thing you know, there's a trade that has nothing to do with this.
That's fine. That won't be a
Okay.
problem.
Thank you. And then the second point is the Queens, on page 135, the Queens Plaza site. I just want to make sure I understand the 50, I'm going back to hard paper next month. The 56 million, I erased all my notes, so the 56 million will go into our into which capital plan? Where does that go when will we receive it, and where does it go?
It gets paid, the lion's share of it gets paid up front.
Right, then they're holding back
There's a
for the
holdback,
last, right.
there's a
Forget
holdback
that,
because
right.
of some ongoing use
So
by
it goes into which
MTACC.
capital plan, though? I'm just trying to,
That's up to Bob, frankly.
It'll go into the 10 to 14 to the extent it's needed, and if it's not needed because we have other revenues that have come in or other resources, it'll go to the 15 to 19. But it is going to be used for the capital program, definitely capital.
okay, so then the amount, which is 117 per square foot of development rights, which is for the development that's been approved or will be approved, what if prior to their construction, there's a change in law, in reg, or something that enables them to build higher or more, so that the value of their project will go up? Do we have a mechanism to also get some type of analogous
Well,
increase on the
we're
value?
we're only selling a finite number of square feet, which they intend at this moment to use fully. I'm not sure I follow. It's not like we're selling them all of our unused development rights. In fact, we have 700 some odd thousand square feet. They're buying the square footage that they believe they can deploy on the site under existing zoning, and the building. The reason that, time is of the essence is they're about to go in the ground.
Excuse my inartful asking of the question and dealing with the iPad. Is there a link between the value we've established, the 117, and what they're putting up? To my point being, if there's a change, I'm thinking maybe past this project, if there's a change in the scope of their project, so that they are benefiting more, and I believe in the free market system, they're benefiting more from the project than as of today they anticipate. Presumably then, the value of what we're giving them is worth more. Will we have a way to capture the increase in value that is today unanticipated, but prior to completion of the project might, and I'm not talking about the general increase of market prices, which hopefully are going up. Is there a way we can capture that added value if they change the scope of their project?
Their property is zoned 12 FAR. It's not getting any bigger than that. They're about to start their project. The number of square feet that we propose to add to their property is based on is the entire limit of what they would be adding to their project. If as you say, values go up between now and completion due to market conditions, no, we would not receive any increase.
That's theirs. They're risking the capital, they're undertaking the project. If there's a change in zoning, or if there's a change in FAR requirements, or there's a change in something along that scope, but you're saying they're too far along, that is really just a hypothetical and absolutely not.
I'm saying they're buying a finite number of
Okay.
feet from us. So it's not like if they were buying all of our space, all of our unused development rights, and they were only paying us X dollars because they only expected to be able to use some fraction of that, and then it turned out they could use more, that would potentially be a windfall for them, but that's not the case.
Okay, thanks. All further follow-up questions I'll ask you away from the, thank you.
Conversely, if we sell them X number of feet and they utilize less, that doesn't change our deal.
That's correct, subject to this proviso that I've just given you, that in the next couple of weeks, I believe we're going to hear definitively from their structural engineers what they think they can use. And if they need to reduce the footage, they're going to come to the table and say
And if
that.
there is a material change, will you come back to the committee?
I don't believe we have time to do that. That's why I had asked for authorization to maintain the same per square foot price and sell them as much as we can. Correct.
Anyone else? May I have a motion and a second? Any further comment or question? Dr. Metzger.
First of all, I think that the members of this board have a primary responsibility to get the best deal we can for this, and I think you've done that. But on the other hand, many of us on the board feel strongly that there are other goals that a public board should meet. This has come up twice now, and I think it's a good idea if we have some discussion amongst ourselves and define whether or not there should be a policy that impacts this kind of situation. Mitch has faced it. This is his second time. It's coming for all of us, and it's wise for us to spend the time to figure it out now so that we don't do it every time Jeff brings us something. If you'd consider that?
Yes, absolutely.
We need to have, yeah, I couldn't agree more. We need to have a robust internal conversation about where we're going with this. Before we commit ourselves to positions we could not theoretically possibly sustain, given the law that, well, you know what I mean. All in favor?
Mr. Chairman, could I be recorded in the negative on 1A and 1E? Thank you.
I think we're ready for
Freddie, I think as a technical matter, I just want to note that approving the project for the Block 430 entails making the findings and adopting the negative declaration under secret. So I'd just like the minutes to reflect that we've done that.
Does everyone understand the point of view? Now we're ready for a motion to adjourn. Second, all in favor? This meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, Jeff.